What's going on, guys? Meteorologist Jonathan Kegas back with you. Appreciate you guys tuning in to our weekly Tropics Watch live show. We get together and hang out every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It was last Monday we were talking about Beryl on the cusp of becoming a Category 5 storm before entering the Caribbean or after entering the Caribbean. And now we're talking about this thing being a prolific tornado producer. We'll get into some of why that is through the course of this video. But right now, very serious situation still in parts of Texas and especially Louisiana and Arkansas, where we do have 3 active tornado warnings. Columbia County, Arkansas, that goes until 8:30, so make sure that you're in your safe place. Union, Arkansas as well until 8:30, and that's going to be really on both Union Parish and Union County, Louisiana and Arkansas respectively, and then just to the west of Monroe until 8:30 as well. These spiral bands continue to come up, and there's a ton of wind shear in the atmosphere, and that's what you need. We always talk about wind shear being something that breaks up hurricanes and tropical storms, but it fuels tornadoes. And we have a lot of turning of the winds with height. We have the breeze out of the south and east at the surface, and then that same system that eventually pulled Beryl to the north is adding that strong southwesterly wind aloft, so you get that turning of the wind with height. And that is why Beryl is such a prolific tornado producing landfalling tropical system. The center now around Tyler, Texas, that is going to continue to work its way up towards Pine Bluff and Little Rock, Fort Smith, and Conway. So again, make sure you're paying close attention here if you're watching anywhere from the southeast corner of Oklahoma to northern Louisiana and then to southern and central Arkansas. That is where we are talking about the most dangerous weather being at this present time. So we're going to push forward now and talk about some of the other things that are happening when it comes to this storm. Let me get back to my other weather computer here. The power outages are prolific. Before we break it down county by county, just look at the amount of power outages, especially in Texas. You see the purple there. That indicates 1 million people without power. At last check, it was over 2 million people without power because of Beryl coming ashore. And then as we get into Louisiana, a little bit lower, about 5,000 to 10,000 people, still significant though. On a county-wide swath here, I wanted to show you this. Again, let me actually get to my interactive radar here so I can break this down and show you the actual numbers as they come through. We're going to hop off of this, and let me close that, and then now we can actually see. So that's 2.6 million people without power in the state of Texas. This is going to be 32,500 people. So things are climbing as we speak. Now 7,000 people without power in Arkansas. And I mean, all of this is going to be Beryl related as well, of course, as it came ashore earlier this morning. So again, a lot of power outages through Texas right now. I want to show you where those power outages really are. And again, just to the southeast of College Station, we have 180,000 people without power. Right around League City, 68,000 people without power. I mean, a ton of power outages across the board, equaling more than 2.5 million people without power tonight in Texas. And you see up closer to Shreveport, we've had some pretty big tornadoes right along the Texas and Louisiana border tonight, spawned from Beryl coming through. We just talked about why this was such a prolific tornado producer. And, I mean, this thing is going to go down in history for what it's done in the Caribbean and what it is doing in parts of Texas right now. Post in the comments where you're tuning in from, and we're going to get back to some of this stuff. And we're going to take you on kind of a journey here where Beryl has been as it winds down, making its final landfall as a Category 1 storm earlier this morning in Texas. But look at all the real estate this thing covered. This is no doubt a August-like system for in the month of June and July. We've been talking about that at length on this channel. And by the way, if you do want to stay updated on the rest of hurricane season, which will get more active again hit that subscribe button for me. I'd appreciate that. If you like hanging out with us and like talking about the weather, you've come to the right place. So hit that subscribe button for me, and we will continue on. Any questions or comments, post those, of course, in the comment section. You might see that comment pulled up on air live or on the stream live as we go through this. So thank you guys so much for being here. All right, so we've been tracking this thing for about 2 weeks since it rolled off the coast of Africa. This orange color that you see on your screen here, that represents when we had tropical storm force winds reported and observed. That rust or kind of darker red color there, that represents when we've had hurricane winds observed or reported. So you see what this thing has done. And of course, as we got closer to Grenada and into St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that was the first landfall. It seems like that was so long ago now. And then, of course, we had Cat 5 status in the Northeast Caribbean, and then working its way as a Category 4 storm. Thankfully, the eye wall stayed off of Jamaica, still a ton of damage, especially on the southern side of the island. Then it worked to the south of Grand Cayman. We stayed out of the hurricane force winds when it comes to the Cayman Islands. We all observed tropical storm force winds, though, doing some damage and causing some flooding. And then we had its other landfall, its second landfall, bringing hurricane force winds to the Yucatan Peninsula and to Cozumel, and then weakened considerably. Finally, shear got to it. Obviously, land interaction got to it. And then where we stand today, this thing tried to ramp up and made a run to intensify further. Of course, it ran in to land as it came ashore early this morning, bringing hurricane force winds to places like Lake Jackson and Freeport and Angleton, into the western side of Houston, really all the metro, observing hurricane force winds in Houston. Houston can't catch a break when it comes to weather this year. Of course, we had the derecho come through a couple of months ago, and then we now have Hurricane Beryl coming through, bringing hurricane force winds all the way through the woodlands. And now we are watching it still bring tropical storm force winds into Tyler, into Shreveport, maybe even into Texarkana a little bit later tonight. So that is the history of what was Hurricane Beryl. No doubt this is an August-like storm in the month of June, and we're going to talk a lot about that as we roll on in this episode today, or in this live stream. So post again in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you're a fan of the weather and want to stay up to date on the weather, hit that subscribe button for me as I pull up my next thing that I want to show you, and we will roll on. This is going to be one of the more mind-blowing stats that you are going to see. We're going to talk about what ACE is, or accumulated cyclone energy, but we have just blown past the record for where we stand to date. So and most of this was Beryl. Of course, we had Alberto shortly. We had Chris very, very shortly. But ACE is a metric used to measure the season intensity-wise. When we talk about a season being intense or not, it's ACE. That is what we're using here. And basically, once a storm becomes named, once it becomes a tropical storm, and at any time it's tropical storm or above, it measures ACE, and it deals with the strength of the storm, the category, and then the longevity of it. So when you have a major hurricane for a long period of time, that is going to drive up the ACE, just like what Beryl did. So to stand between those three storms, again, most of that being Beryl, we have an ACE of 36.13. That puts us at the top by far through where we stand on July 8th today. The second, so what used to be first place, was 21.46. That was from the 1951 season, and man, look at that. We blew that away, and again, that is because we had the earliest, easternmost, Beryl broke a lot of records, and here they are. Easternmost hurricane to develop in June, that breaking the unnamed hurricane of 1933. Became the strongest June hurricane on record, beating Audrey in 1957, and then this became the earliest Cat 4 on record, beating Dennis from 2005. So this storm is going to be historic. It's going to go down in history. We'll see if the World Meteorological Organization retires it. In my opinion, we're never going to hear this name again because it should be retired for the damage that it's done in Grenada, in the Caymans, in Jamaica, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in the Yucatan, and now Texas being a prolific tornado producer. We'll eventually see what kind of damage this thing did with the tornadoes that it produced in parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. But it was a lot. Those were some big tornadoes, very, very big for tropical storm status. We typically do not see the storms that big. You might be asking, okay, how do you know they were that big? We had very big debris signatures on those storms. So with the radar, we were able to actually see the debris being lofted up into the atmosphere. So again, you have to get a tornado pretty intense for that to happen. All right, so we have some comments on the board, and we're going to look at those now. Hey, Lori, what's going on in Okeechobee, Florida? Thanks for all the great info. Praying with all that's left without electricity. And this is obviously, as a Floridian, you said that in your next comment, or from Florida, I should say. The power being out for days and maybe a couple of weeks is, just insult to injury, of course, if you've ever gone through one of these things, because it's typically really hot and you don't have the power to be going through it. And I say this to anybody that may be catching the feed in Texas or Louisiana who have power. Please, 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 please be very, very careful with running generators. We lose more people nowadays after the storm because of running generators incorrectly and not following the warning labels, or people using candles and that causing fires and things like that. People doing stupid things, driving through flooded waters, and then people just not paying attention and maybe stepping on a live power line. A lot of that sounds common sense, but a lot of times people are going through a lot of things and they're just not thinking. So if you happen to be tuning in from any of these hit areas, I just beg you to please pay attention and please listen to local law enforcement. If they say not to go in, please don't go in. That's a very, very important thing. All right, question here, is La Nina going to actually begin this hurricane season? It should. I will tell you some of the climate models that came through. These most recent updates are backing off the intensity and the speed at which La Nina comes on through. But it should arrive a little bit later on this hurricane season, which will add an extra kick to it. Again, we're technically in ENSO neutral right now. And we got Beryl out of the deal. So the further we get closer to La Nina and actually jumping into La Nina is going to have a huge impact. All right, Lori, we're going back to you because this is going to segue into my next segment here of Tropics Watch Live. And again, thank you guys so much for being here. Post in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you're finding this stream helpful, please share it with your friends. Hit that thumbs up button. And we'd love to have you hang around for the hurricane season and beyond. Hit that subscribe button. Love to have you guys join the team. We have a great weather conversation, kind of like what we're having here on our daily weather videos. So please hit that subscribe button. Love to have you. All right. So here's the deal with what's coming behind, or thankfully, the lack thereof. So for those that don't know much about a phenomenon called the Madden-Julian oscillation, it's the MJO for short. And what that does is it's a convective pulse that goes around the globe every 30 to 60 days. And there are phases that this thing goes through, or parts of the world that enhance convection or thunderstorm activity in one part of the world, and then suppress it in other parts of the world. Well, we had an MJO pulse come on through the Gulf of Mexico. That helped to give us Alberto and Chris and a lot of other just plain old thunderstorms through Central America. And then it worked its way across the main development region of the Atlantic. It gave us a couple of extra tropical waves, Invest 96L, and then most notably, of course, it gave us Hurricane Beryl, or what would become Hurricane Beryl going through. So all these different colors on the map is to say I do believe that we are going to go into a significant quiet period in the Atlantic basin. So we are going to take a sizable break here. What is going on? The Madden-Julian oscillation is going to be on the other side of the world, which would promote sinking air. So you see this brown here. What this tells us and what this is being modeled as is upper level convergence. When air converges, upward jet aircraft fly, it sinks and then it diverges at the surface. So we're going to have higher than normal pressure in the tropical Atlantic. So this goes out through the first week of this is through July 15th, and then it gets even darker brown as we go through July 22nd. So this is now 3 weeks through July. So I do think the next 2 weeks of July are going to be pretty quiet. Now, could we have a quick little spin up something? Yeah, we could. It doesn't mean we're not going to get any storms, but I don't think we're going to see anything like we just did due to the fact that it's going to be fighting against some drier air and some big-time sinking air. So it would have to it would be doing some fighting. There we go through July 29th. And then finally, well, I wish it'd continue, but then as we get into the first week or two of August, we start to lose the sinking air. So it will become a little more favorable for development at that point. Now, I want to show you a couple of extra climate models. So I do think that the next 2 weeks in the Atlantic, Gulf, and Caribbean are going to be relatively quiet because of what we just talked about. Then I think once we get into August, that's when we start to see the uptick, and then that's where the meat of the season begins, and then we go from there. So I want to show you this. This is going to be now through parts of July, and then notice this is going to run through July. Let me see where I'm at. That's August. Let me go back. So same deal with this. This is going to be the yellow representing the anomaly, the precip anomalies. So the yellow represents drier than normal. So we have drier than normal in the Gulf, drier than normal off the Atlantic coast, and then drier than normal, thankfully, we need it, in the Eastern Caribbean and extreme Western Atlantic where we just got hit with Beryl. But then watch what happens. As we get into August, this is going to be July 29th now, we get that main development region signal again. This is the climate model CFSV2 precipitation anomaly. So we start to get that signal again of those long track storms coming off of the African continent and then working its way over into the Caribbean. That continues there, and you see, again, where the potential path could go, lifting up into parts of the Northeast Caribbean, Puerto Rico, into the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and then maybe the southeast corner of the United States. So again, that's just the anomaly, but unfortunately, these models did very, very good when it comes to forecasting that anomaly for Beryl. So again, when you have this is the Canadian climate model, and this one even goes even more gangbusters. That's for July. This is for August. Again, that fire hose of moisture coming through, meaning that we're going to get that African wave train rolling. That is September, and then that's October. And you can see there anomalies showing drier than normal air through Florida, which would be the saving grace. Again, those cold fronts coming down would suppress everything from the United States. But as we talked about many, many times so far, many times so far this season, especially as we, got out in our development, got up in our development prior to the season, we talked at length about how active August would be and potentially September as well, especially in the Caribbean as well. Let me pull up some extra comments here. And thank you guys again for being here. Hey, what's going on in Northeast Pennsylvania? Good to see you. Hurl's asking, what are the chances for a storm to follow the path of Beryl into the Caribbean? Unfortunately, I think it's pretty likely. Maybe not the exact track, but this year screamed Caribbean year. From looking at all of the analogs and then looking at all of the models, again, past seasons to kind of forecast the future, most, if not all of those seasons were hinting at a very, very busy year in the Caribbean. And unfortunately, we got a super early start with that. Now, I mentioned we're going to take that break again, and I'll bring you back up to some of those anomalies that I was showing you before. I'll bring up a different model, and we're going to go back but this is kind of the path or the projected path. I mean, you can kind of use these precip anomalies things as, I mean, where you have the higher precip, that is where you need a storm to create that precipitation. Here is July. Again, I think we're going to take a break until we get to that third or fourth week of July. And then August, I mean, look at the anomalies here rolling off, and then the Caribbean lights up again. And then we have the potential for stuff to get really, really close to Florida and the Carolinas, and then maybe curve out in between the U.S. and Bermuda. The Gulf could be active again. So August may not be kind to land this hurricane season. So please take this, for those that weren't impacted by Beryl, take this as a reminder that this is likely going to be a super active season, and take these next couple of quiet weeks to get your to get all your ducks in a row, so to speak, and all of that as well. Really interesting question here. I would have to look that up. I used to know the answer. And let me show you. Let me pull that comment over. So the question is, I'm pretty curious, since Beryl had 3 landfalls, is there a storm that has made more landfalls than that? There certainly has. I want to say the number 6, but I don't quote me on that. I'll have to look that up, and we can get back to you on that on a later live stream. But there's definitely been more. We've had stuff in Florida. I mean, I think Faye made like 4 landfalls alone in Florida back in 2008 as a tropical storm. So I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff. Hey, what's going on in Winter Park? Finding the stream from Central Florida, obviously, where we are at. 3 inches down, now we're draining it. There was some crazy rain that we were pinpointing earlier on News 6 at 6 and 5 o'clock, really all through the afternoon. Those storms are crazy. It's been a while since we've seen an evening like the one that you were talking about in Winter Park. Hey, meteorologist Cameron Jordan, he's in Navasta, Texas. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Got hit very hard by Hurricane Beryl. Hope you're doing okay, all things considered, after getting hit hard. I'm sorry to hear that. It's crazy. I've heard a lot of people saying that, oh, this wasn't a Cat 1. It was stronger than that. It's a good reminder just how strong just a Cat 1 is. Again, a lot of times that's the thing that we always hear is, oh, it's just a tropical storm. Oh, it's just a Category 1. I'm not going to evacuate. The surge was pretty remarkable along the coast of Texas, and the damage through Houston and the power outages is just crazy. So it always goes without saying to make sure that you are taking these storms seriously and following the impacts rather than the category. Because all things considered, this was a super forecast from the National Hurricane Center with a lot of lead time to this. There was the shifting again from Mexico up to the coast of Texas, but that uncertainty was well forecast that this was likely going to curve up due to the fact that, we talked about it at length on this channel as well, that it was following the northern end of the models, which took it in between Corpus Christi and Houston, and that's exactly where it came on shore, unfortunately. And Daniel bringing up a great point, a hurricane is a hurricane, and there's a reason why it's called that. So, again, it just serves as a reminder, because that is doing the newscast tonight. And for those that don't know, we're based out of Central Florida, but doing the news tonight and hearing some of the stories of people in Texas, they were shocked at how powerful Beryl was. And I just had to kind of look, and I'm not sure why, because it made landfall as an 80 to 85 mile per hour storm with gusts that were pushing 100. So, and that's the thing, and especially when Beryl was a very mean storm the whole way, and it was likely, it was picking up strength as it was making landfall. So it wasn't something that was weakening. it was doing that too. The other thing that was helping Beryl out, let me see if I have one of my if I have easy access to one of my upper air charts that I can show you. Let me dial that up, because I do think it's kind of important meteorologically to show you what is going on. And again, if you like that stuff and learning about the weather, hit that subscribe button for me. I got to do the shameless plug. But let me show you here. Let me get this real quick. It was aided, Beryl was, by a synoptic feature, this dip in the jet stream. So we're looking at the 250 millibar winds. So this is yesterday. We're going to go back in time. And then here was Beryl, this L. We're looking at the 250 millibar level, up about to where jet aircraft fly. So this is the jet stream here. Watch kind of what happens. See the pressure drop quickly. We're at 995, 991, then it goes to 987, 984, then 983. That was the model forecast, of course. But it was being helped not only by the warm water, not only by the relaxing shear, but we also had this jet streak hanging out here. So we were entering what we call a right entrance region to a jet streak. So you get upper level divergence, and then you get surface convergence. So a synoptic scale feature was actually helping Beryl intensify quickly. And I mean, thankfully, it did run out of land, because if it had another 12 hours to go, God forbid 24 hours, this thing would have been a major hurricane again. But again, it ran into land. But this is the other reason why this has been such a prolific tornado producer. You have out of the surface, you have winds out of the south and east, and then out of aloft, you have those strong winds out of the south and west brought on by the jet stream. So let me take this out. I want to show you just kind of all the shear in the atmosphere. So these are what we call the wind barbs here. So at the surface, we have the wind, in a pretty gusty wind, as you might imagine. Whoops, went too far. So we have the breeze, the wind out of the south and east right here, and then it really strengthens. But notice how those wind barbs turn. So we have southeasterly, southerly, southerly, a little bit of southeasterly, and then way above we have winds out of the south and west. That is that turning of the wind with height, and then off the screen you can't see what the storm relative helicity was, but it's very, very high, and then we also have this looping hodograph that's also off the screen. So again, it was well forecast by the Storm Prediction Center that this would be a highly productive storm at producing tornadoes. So that was what I was showing you there. That was a skew T. So we look at that wintertime to kind of dissect precipitation types, and in a severe weather situation, we look at it to look at how much instability is in the atmosphere and all that stuff. And then there you go, wind gusts over 95 miles an hour at times. So that's a Cat 2 gust as we get in there. So, I mean, again, it was sustained winds of about 80 miles an hour, and the gusts were up to about 100. I think I've seen a report that was just at 100 degrees on some 100 miles per hour, I should say, going through there. So, Cameron Jordan, I really hope that things recover quickly there and that you were okay. But that's a crazy wind gust to get, 95 mile per hour wind gust. So again, in a Category 1 storm, produced that. But again, as mentioned, that would be a Cat 2 gust. Going through. Let me just see if there's any other questions out here. Again, if anyone has any questions, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. Would love to see where you are finding us tonight. And if you want to stay updated on all things weather going forward, hit that subscribe button for me. Would love to have you guys on board as we continue to forecast things this hurricane season. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for being here. Again, if you are in the Texas area, Louisiana, Arkansas, where we're dealing with a severe weather threat brought on by Hurricane Beryl, please be safe out there. Please take care, and please just, again, be mindful of the impacts post-storm that unfortunately are leading to more fatalities than the storm itself these days. I'll show you this before we go. One last thing. I forgot to show you I always like to show you the "We Are Here" thing. That blinky dot right down there through the 7th or 8th of July. That's where we stand. And again, unfortunately, just scratching the surface when it comes to this hurricane season. It's the climatology since 1981, the peak being September 10th. Where we stand in terms of the names, Debbie would be the next name up. I don't think we're going to meet Debbie, thankfully, for quite some time. We need an ice break after Beryl. And if you want to stay updated on the tropics as well, not only hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page if you're watching that. If you're watching on News 6 Plus, again, welcome, or clickorlando.com. Glad to have you here. But take your phone right up to that QR code. You can also go to clickorlando.com/newsletters and sign up for the Tropics Watch newsletter. I will visit your inbox every Monday at sometime in the evening. Again, you're going to get an email from me kind of breaking down some of the things that we talked about in this live stream in depth. So if you want to stay updated that way, again, without the fear tactics, without the hype, and if you like the science and meteorology behind the tropics and hurricane season and all that, hit that subscribe button. Go to clickorlando.com/newsletters and sign up. Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure. I appreciate the trust, too, that you've been putting in us about as we were tracking Beryl together. I appreciate that. It was great meeting everybody, and I really do hope that we get to talk on much better terms over the next couple of weeks. I think we will. So I will catch you guys next Monday. One more thing, Cameron Jordan saying Snap Power Pulse looked like a tornado came through. So there's going to be a lot of stuff, and again, just really seeing the damage over the last couple of hours. This is probably a no-doubter in terms of being retired by the World Meteorological Organization. Just for, I mean, it's done a lot of damage, of course, across the way. Hey, Michelle, hope you're doing all right in Barbados, where you guys are the first up. You guys got lashed by Beryl first. You got it. Good to see you. It's been a while. Watching from Palm Beach, Florida. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daniel, thank you for being here as well. Isabel was rough. I was in Southwest Virginia for, Florence, and then for Michael, where we had a ton of flooding in the southwest corner of the state. But Isabel was a terrible one as well. A lot of people forget about the inland stuff. Virginia gets impacted like crazy. I mean, Camille back in the day. Lot of flooding, lot of damage, a lot of fatalities in Camille inland. Good stuff. I think Beryl might go up and out. I think it'll head like towards Detroit and towards like northern Pennsylvania. Hey, what's going on in Ocala? Good to see you. Always here. Well, thanks so much for being here in Central Virginia. D. Douglas, good to see you onto the stream. If you are new here and finding us for the first time, welcome. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kegas, and we track the tropics and all things weather, and we do it with science and meteorology. So if you're into that stuff, I'll say it one more time before I go. Daniel's watching from Western North Carolina. Appreciate that, my friend. Good to see you as always. And again, before I go, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated on all things weather. We'll catch you next Monday, and of course, through the week with our regular video content if you're interested in that stuff. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be safe out there. Again, we're still watching Beryl work its way through parts of Texas and into Louisiana, bringing that big-time tornado threat with it. Alrighty, guys, we will catch you next Monday, 8 o'clock, right back here one more time. Have a good night.